Welcome to the Hospital Finance Podcast, your go-to source for information and insights that can help you stay ahead of the challenges impacting healthcare finance. And now, the host of the Hospital Finance Podcast, Michael Passanante.
Hi, this is Mike Passanante, and welcome back to the Hospital Finance Podcast. Now, wage index is something that's so important to reimbursement for hospitals across the country, and there are some key upcoming deadlines that you should be aware of. And to help us understand what those deadlines are, we've joined by DeLicia Pierce, who is the director of our reimbursement services team here at BESLER. DeLicia, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Mike. Thank you. Good morning.
So, DeLicia, there are several deadlines coming up in the very near term here. Why don't you walk us through what some of those are?
Hi, Mike. And I'm gonna start with the upcoming deadlines because we have a timetable that CMS has released. But I'm not going to go back to the May, June. I'm going to start with September for 2018, and that's the deadline for hospitals to request revisions to their S3 wage data for the current year, 2016 occupational mix, and they're also going to release on May 8th. Did they release on May 18th the preliminary PUF file? So if you haven't looked at that PUF file, you need to go ahead and do that because the MACs have approximately 10 weeks to complete their reviews. So you want to make sure that if you notice anything incorrect in that data, that you actually reach out to the MACs and let them know. There's a November 6th deadline for the MACs to notify the state hospital associations if hospitals have failed to respond. That's been new in the last, 8 years. There's a deadline of November 16th for the MACs to complete all their desk reviews for hospital wage index data and to make sure that they get that into the DAC in an electronic format. Occupational mix is sent to the DAC as well in an Excel spreadsheet. So make sure you meet those deadlines. And then also new is there's a deadline for hospitals to dispute data corrections made by CMS, of which the hospitals are notified after January 31st, 2019. So make sure that you kind of look at that. You must request must be received by CMS by this date in order to basically do your appeal. So, and if you go to the CMS website, they have the appeals email address, which is wageindexreview@cms.hhs.gov, and you can send hard copies. I would highly recommend sending an electronic copy and a hard copy if you're going to make sure that if you're appealing anything, just so you have two sources, two correspondents to prove. So also April and May 2019, it's the date when the proposed rule is going to be published. So you'll want to make sure that you look at that because they'll probably release another PUF. And then if you're going to, and they're going to give us a 60-day comment period. So, and then you can, if you're requesting geographic reclass, you have 45 days to withdraw your application if there's a reason you want to withdraw it. In early April 2019, they will the wage index data will be sent to CMS and MAC for verification. So you just kind of keep those dates in mind. And then also January 31st, 2019, there will be they will release a revised 2020 wage index occupational mix files, and they'll be on the CMS website in PUF format. So we're all pretty used to having to do those and work with them. So also February 15th, 2019 deadlines for hospitals to submit their request, and then in March 22nd, 2019 deadline for the MACs to follow transmit revisions to data in HCRIS. So make sure you look at that. Then there's an April 4th, 2019 deadline. And sometimes these deadlines will change depending on when, if the MAC has some kind of delay, but for the most part, everything on the timeline schedule, you need to be very diligent in looking at the dates and what you need to do as a provider. And so then in April 2019, they'll release the wage index numbers for the upcoming year, and then May 30th, there's going to be a deadline for submitting corrections. And these are very similar every year. Just the day may change, if it's a weekend. So, and then in August 1st, 2019, we expect to have the publication of the final rules. So, and then the final rules go into effect on October 1st for inpatient and January 1st, 2020 for outpatient.
DeLicia, what date will the final wage index numbers be released?
Typically around August 1st, 2019 for the next year, for the upcoming year. So that's, and that they say August 1st, but sometimes it's delayed. I can tell you this year, the proposed rules were released about almost 2 weeks later than they had in the previous year. So everything is dependent on what's going on with CMS, but for the most part, the final rules are released in August and they go into effect October 1st for inpatient only.
DeLicia, thanks for that. Certainly lots of upcoming dates to be aware of. For hospitals that are looking to have a wage index review done, of course, BESLER is one of the national experts in that. So please feel free to go check out the resources related to wage index at BESLER.com and look for our reimbursement services page. DeLicia, thanks so much for joining us today on the Hospital Finance Podcast.
Thank you, Mike.
This concludes today's episode of the Hospital Finance Podcast. For show notes and additional resources to help you protect and enhance revenue at your hospital, visit BESLER.com/podcasts. The Hospital Finance Podcast is a production of BESLER. Smart about revenue, tenacious about results.